Yo, what is going on YouTube? Omega V here with you, and today I'm bringing you the second part of our Let's Learn Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. So, yeah, for today, I am going to be going over what makes a good deck, and yeah, we're not going to be building our own deck today. I'm just going to go over the basics on what a deck involves. So, we're going to be using one of the examples of a deck that I have previously built already. And the one I'm going to go over is my build for my Dark Magician deck. Now, keep in mind, the decks I have built are exclusively for me. They're built to my playstyle and how I like to play the game best, or how the game suits me best. So, it might not necessarily be the best for you. There is tons of different decks out there. There's hand trap version decks, there's graveyard decks, there's banishing decks, there's stall decks if you really want to be that guy, but nobody wants to be that guy that plays a stall deck. Come on. That's just not fun at all for anyone. It's just annoying, so don't do that. There's hyper offensive deck, there's hyper defensive decks, there's balanced decks, so you kind of just gotta figure out what type of style you like to play and go from there. So yeah, I'm not gonna go over everything that the deck actually does and all that. I'm just gonna go over why I have certain things in there and how certain things work together in the deck to make it work properly. So, like I said, we're gonna be going over my Dark Magician build. So let's get started. Alright, well, first off, you have your Dark Magicians. So it's called a Dark Magician deck, which obviously you want to have 3 of. There is yeah, you have to have 3 of your main monsters. Same for any deck that specifically lists a monster. So Red Eyes, Blue Eyes, Dark Magician, Black Luster Soldier, anything like that, you want to have 3 of. So yeah, it's not the best card by itself in a regular deck. Obviously, you're probably not going to run Dark Magician in most other decks that you build, unless it's another spellcaster type deck that you can run him in without breaking the deck. So yeah, 3 of the main monster. So then, usually when you have this type of deck, there is a supporting monster, which in this case is Magician of Dark Illusion. This card is basically another Dark Magician when it's on the field. Oh, it is another Dark Magician on the field, so it helps you go into a lot of your different combo plays. It's adding 3 more copies of Dark Magician to the deck, essentially. Alright, so that's those 2 right. That's the first part. You have to have your... Usually it's about 6 cards that are complete staples of the deck. You want to run 3 of each. And if you don't, it really... the deck doesn't work as well as it should. Now, the staple card of the deck, it can be anything, really. It can be a spell card, it can be trap cards, it can be monsters, or it can even be the extra deck monsters for some cases that you just want to run 3 of, because that's how the deck works. Alright, next up we have the boss monsters of the deck. So that's just what I call them. You could call them whatever you want, the stronger monsters in the deck. So for my deck here, I have 1 Silent Magician, 1 Silent Magician level 8, 1 Palladium Oracle Mahad, and 1 Black Luster Soldier on play at the beginning. Now, why do I have only 4 monsters that I call boss monsters? Well, these cards, while they can help you throughout the duel, if you get more than 1 in your hand, you're probably not going to be in a very good spot. For example, if you draw this into your hand, you're kind of screwed, because you can't really summon it without her effect, so you want to keep him in the deck really throughout the entire time. And then same with Mahad. You're not going to tribute 2 monsters to bring him out, especially with the way I play this deck. It's just not going to happen. He's great if you draw into him. He can win you games, but you just don't want to do it. And then, yeah, this card, she's really great. Also, her effect is phenomenal, and she's really broken. Can help you out throughout the entire game, essentially, no matter when you draw her. But if you had more than one of her in your hand, there's just really not a point. And then same with Blackluster Soldier. While this card is just limited to 1, but even if it wasn't, you probably wouldn't run more than 1 in this type of deck, because it could break your hands and not let you go into your combos. So moving on. Alright, so we went over the main monster, the supporting main monster, and the boss monsters. Next up, you have what I call the supporting cast to your deck. So in this case, I have 2 Dark Magician Girls. I would like to run just 1, preferably, but I have been in situations before where if I could have gone into the rank 6, I would have won the game, and it would have been a different thing. But I only had 1 out on the field, and I couldn't make it work like that. I just didn't win the game. Then we have, for this one, have 2 more Chocolate Magician Girls, which lets me get a Spellcaster from the grave during the battle phase, which, if I get any of my main monsters, can activate some of my spell cards that activate their effect with Dark Magician on the field. So that's why she's in there. Yeah. That's the supporting cast. So then, last but definitely not least in the monster hierarchy, you have your Searcher monsters. So these monsters are ones that will let you search out cards from your deck. They will let you sometimes get them back from the grave, from banished, etc. So for this one, I have a Magician's Rod, 3 copies of each, and my Magician's Robe, 3 copies of each. This is just my preference to run 3 of each. There is actually not really any importance if you run 2 or 3, but I would definitely recommend at least putting 2 of the Searcher monsters in for each deck, just to make it a little bit more consistent for you. Alright, so next we have lots of decks play field spells now, and these are cards that will give you some type of advantage in one way or another. So for this deck, I do play the Secret Village of the Spellcasters. Now, again, I'm not going to go into what these cards do. I'm just telling you what goes into a good deck, in my opinion. This is your lockdown card. It helps you lock down opponents so that they can't do a lot of things. So I am just going to give a quick example of this. So one of your trap cards, Eternal Soul, is a really good trap card. If when you're playing it, your Dark Magicians are not affected by any card effects. So monster effects, trap effects, spell effects, they don't matter to your Dark Magicians while they're on the field if this is on there. However, if this card gets destroyed, it clears your entire board. Well, that's why this is there. This helps you lock down your opponent from using spell cards such as Twin Twisters or Space Typhoons that would destroy your Eternal Soul otherwise. And it works really well because all it requires to keep its effect in play is a Spellcaster type on the field, which in this deck you have plenty. Alright, next up you have your main spell card of the deck, which is something that you always want to get out as quickly as possible. Now, they're not always permanent spell cards, so sometimes it's just a one-time spell card that you want to get out on there. Or sometimes it's a quick play spell. So field spell, even if, or in some cases they're the ones that make the deck run properly. So in this case, it's the Dark Magical Circle. These ones are also ones that you want to have 3 of. Generally, they are probably the most expensive cards in the deck, just because their effects are usually really good, and they're the reason why you have the deck in the first place that can run as well as it does. Alright, and next up I have the supporting spell cards. So what are these? These are cards that just help support your other cards on the field. So for example, Dark Magical Veil, summon the spellcaster from your hand or graveyard. Then this one just powers up your monsters or does other things depending on the amount. This one you banish 2 spell cards from your grave that you've already used. So if, say you have these 2 on the grave already, you can just activate this one, banish it, and add 1 card from your deck. So you can see on here probably that this card specifically lists that you can add a Dark Magician or any card that lists Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl. So yeah, it really helps you draw out, it gives you a bit more draw power. Now, I personally don't play the drawing versions of it. I like to make the deck as consistent as possible without adding things like Pot of Desires, which in my opinion is the stupidest card ever made. But for some reason it's still $80. Alright. And then last but not least, you have your emergency spells, which, again, these are all just terms that I call them, which are spells that will help you out in an emergency. So first off, Dark Magic Attack. Say your opponent has a full back row. You don't know what they're activating. You don't know what you're gonna do to, if he can attack or not. Alright, you draw into this. Cool, you have a spell, Dark Magician on the field. You can use it. Your entire opponent's back row, or their field spell if they have one, also is gone as well. So that's really important. Then these 2. These are just the fusion spells that help you go into certain monsters. I just play these 2 because they work really well with the deck, but you don't need to really run any fusion spells to make the deck run. Again, these are just my own personal opinion on this. Alright, so on to trap cards. So same thing as spell cards. You have your initial ones that will help you out. So for example, this one lets you summon a Dark Magician and then from your hand and then 1 from your deck. Alright, that's good. Gives you the ability to activate your circles effects. And then you have your main trap card, which is one that you want to try to have on the field. Again, they're not always permanent traps like this. Traps like this one. They can be quick play traps. They can be normal traps. They can be permanent traps. Any variety of things. And then you have your supporting traps. So for example, you have a Solemn Strike. I have my own. I play this Starlight Road just because of this. Say your opponent gets past this, they activate something to destroy your Eternal Soul. Well, if you have your Starlight Road face down, you can actually negate the activation of that second effect, since it would destroy more than one card on the field normally. And you can actually get out your Stardust Dragon from your extra deck. So pretty cool. Yeah, Mirror Forces, they help prevent attacks, and I run 2 of them because of my thing of Critias. And then also 1 Solemn Warning and 1 Bottomless. So yeah, let me just move this over here. Oops. Alright, so these last 3 are just the protection traps, is what I call them. Well, they're all, from Starlight Road down, they're all basically protection traps. They do different things. So these last 3 protect you from your opponent summoning their monsters. These 2 protect you from your opponent attacking. This one protects you from your opponent destroying multiple cards, so it can be really helpful to run them. Alright, so onto the extra deck. You can't just throw anything in there. There are certain things that you want to have in there that will help you out in the long run. And you also got to be smart about when you play it. Lots of these things can be situational if you want to play an extra deck or not. So for this deck, for example, I rarely actually use my extra deck, but when I do, it's an important situation where otherwise I will lose the duel if I don't bring something else out. So what goes in here? Well, you have to focus on what monsters you have and what levels you can play things at. So, for example, I have 6 level 7 monsters. 8 level 7 monsters. I forgot about 1. So I can run level 7s fairly frequently. So I run 1, 2, 3, 5 level 7s. Each of them has a different situational thing that they can go into. In this deck's case, there is not one that I run into more than the others. So it's not really important why they're each there. They're just situational based. And then for the next part, let's see, I have 1, 2, this is an 8. So I have 2 level 6s. So I have my option, and I do run these two. Now, keep in mind that Magi Magician Girl isn't actually out for the TCG yet, so I only run her online, but in my actual deck I do run a Utopia Beyond. This is just something that can be helpful. All it requires is 2 level 6 monsters, which is what I have. So if the situation calls for it, I can bring it out. Same for her if I'm playing online. The situation's there, I can use her. Alright, then I also, apart from that, I have 2 level 8s. So I can run one. I do run 1 level 8, which is the Hope Harbinger Titanic Galaxy. It's just a really good monster card to run in any deck that you can, but again, if you have to go into him, there's chances that something is going pretty wrong and you need to do something to fix it. Alright, so I run 1 Stardust Dragon. Now that's just because Starlight Road gives me the ability to summon him. There's not a single tuner in my deck, so there's not really any point to running synchro monsters in here, but I can use it if I need to. And then last but not least, I have my fusion monsters. So these 3 are all different ones that I can go into with Timaeus. There's different options for what I can use and why I can use them in there. And then this last one is just there as it's more of an emergency. Normally I'd much rather use the actual mirror forces than use them to summon out a monster, but if I need to summon him out, his effect can actually help me out really well. Alright, and then we have our side deck, which is just a little something that you can use to switch things out if you're playing a tournament style match, which is 2 out of 3 games. For my deck, I run 1 Stardust Spark Dragon, 1 Glow Bulb, 2 Scarlights, 1 Constellar Ptolemy M7, and the 3rd Dark Magician Girl. So these are all just cards in that I can switch in. The only reason I even have the synchros in here is because I do have that Glow Bulb in my side deck, which I can substitute in for something if I need to. Usually I'll substitute it for one of my searchers or for one of my Chocolate Magician Girls, just making it a little bit easier for me. Alright guys, so that's the basics of the decks, of building your own deck. You gotta have your main monsters, your supporting main monsters, your boss monsters, your supporting cast monsters, then your searchers finally. Then same with the spells and traps. and you got yourself a pretty good deck in my opinion. So that's it for this video, guys. Until next time, later.